He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, this is The Alex Marlow Show. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Huge response to the Josh Hawley exclusive from yesterday. So thanks for sharing that with anyone. And I still think it'll sound very good a day or two later. And if you're driving around over the weekend, etc., check it out. Always good to do that. If you can, help support the show. Aloha at alexmarlow.com. If you would like to correspond with me, be a part of the show. I will be answering a lot of email tomorrow, but today we have another big guest. Lara Trump is here, the one and only Lara Trump, who is an absolute delight and one of the most capable up-and-coming stars in the conservative movement, and someone who I've become friends with, but virtually, because I go on her show, The Right View, quite a bit, and we always have a blast when we're there, and it was nice to interview her. So we have that for you, pretty long form, medium form. I call that medium form, 30 minutes or so, but I want to bring a couple of quick news items to your attention first, and I'll do some more updates tomorrow. But we got chaos on the Capitol, a mad scramble as the spending bill does seem to be dead. At least we're looking at new options here. And what does this mean for Speaker Johnson? This is the talk of Washington, D.C. at the moment, the talk of the news world. And Trump, we don't know exactly where he stands, but we do know one thing, that he wants to blow up the concept of the debt ceiling. Interesting stuff. He just truth bombed this before the show. If Republicans try to pass a clean continuing resolution without all the Democrat bells and whistles, that will be so destructive to our country. All it will do after January 20th is bring the mess of the debt limit into the Trump administration, rather than allowing it to take place in the Biden administration. Any Republican that would be so stupid as to do this should and will be primaried. Everything should be done and fully negotiated prior to my taking office, January 2025. So that's where Trump's at. He doesn't want to see a debt ceiling. He doesn't want to see a debt limit. And I'm intrigued by this because he wants the debt ceiling at least raised to a point where Chuck Schumer can't use it to leverage Trump. That's the main thing here. That's the environment we're in, is that Chuck Schumer he knows when the debt ceiling comes up, Trump is not going to be able to rein in spending. He's not going to be able to rein in debt at a fast enough rate so that it won't hinder his ability to govern coming up. So because of all the spending that's been allocated by the Biden administration and past CRs and omnibuses, et cetera, and all the work that DOJ is going to do to cut stuff, all of the tapping of the energy sector that will no doubt lead to more revenue and thus more tax dollars, all of that is going to take a year or two to get fully implemented. So the debt ceiling will come up, and Trump doesn't want to have to deal with it. So how do you deal with it? Because the bottom line is there has to be some sort of a check on the debt. The Congress he authorizes spending, but can it just authorize unlimited borrowing? It's sort of the main goal of the Congress in many ways, is to authorize debt. So it's nice every once in a while for us to come together as a people and acknowledge the debt's too high. And we're not going to do that without a debt limit. That said, I see the argument that the debt limit is pretty much fake anyway. We always blow through it. We're never going to stop it forever. And until we get to a point where we're actually making more money than we're taking in, then the debt's going to continue to go up. So, but Congress is supposed to authorize debt and taxes when their main goals. It's kind of the job that they're supposed to do. So if they can't do that, it's a real indictment of them. But he knows Schumer is going to use debt brinksmanship to try to negotiate more stuff from Trump invariably in some sort of omnibus bill that'll come down the road. So Trump is trying to get around this, and he wants to be able to get the economy going without having to give up stuff to Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. So I don't know how to do it. Maybe you raise it so it doesn't come up again in 4 years, but that's not a great look. So what do? You raise it $100 trillion? I mean, it's kind of wild. It's a possibility. If you eliminate it completely, again, we don't have these check-ins. So I don't even know if you could pull that off on a constitutional level where you can have a limited levels of debt without any regulation. But it's compelling stuff, and it's all being debated, and I'll have some updates for you as this thing gets sorted out. But the debt ceiling, if you think about it, it really just doesn't even exist. So it's that's step number one. You got to figure out how that goes. Step number two is what happens to Speaker Johnson after this botched rollout You may have caught on yesterday's show how Josh Hawley said every Democrat would vote for his CR. So that's part of why it's dead. It's not really a CR. It was a continuation of spending, funded all sorts of offensive stuff, a lot of which we discussed in yesterday's show. I'll bring up some more tomorrow. I want to get into a little bit their funding of the Global Disinformation Index and all these censorship outlets designed to target conservatives. Super offensive stuff, but it's so offensive that I got a feeling Johnson's going to have a hard time keeping his speakership. He might be able to. The only Republican thus far who has said flat out he will not vote for Johnson, who's in the House, is Thomas Massie. Which is not a shock, but he only needs one or two more at the moment, and then he's going to go down. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, Stubbe in Florida, they both indicated that they're wobbly, but we don't know for sure. But Democrats likely could bail out Johnson. They bailed him out last time, as you might recall, where there was the motion to vacate. It's complicated in terms of the mechanics of it, but ultimately Democrats saved his gavel. And that could happen again, but Hakeem Jeffries has indicated he might not be up for it, the leader of the Democrat Party. So it's pretty interesting. What does the debt ceiling look like long term? What does Johnson's future look like long term? And are we headed for another government shutdown? All of this is a moving target, and we'll have more updates for you on that. But a lot of chaos, and that's the nature. If you put forward these crap bills, then there could be more chaos could ensue, because that bill is a total disaster. And what's next, though? We don't know. All right, Breitbart.com for the latest on all that. Other story I wanted to bring up today, Fani Willis disqualified from the Trump case, and there's an appearance of impropriety that took place. It's a huge win, but it could have been bigger. So there are two issues at play in this disqualification. The court actually gave a split decision. The first decision was that Willis can no longer do the case. The fact that she had hired her boyfriend, who's completely unqualified, he got a sweetheart rate. So, and then what happened, this is the most scandalous part of it, is that she was receiving financial benefits from the arrangement because he was getting triple his rate to do a job he was not qualified to do. And then he would use the money to take her on luxury vacations, all taxpayer money. So obviously conflicts of interest, huge levels of impropriety. I mean, she should lose her law license, in my opinion. So, but it is, and what's ironic is that she's prosecuting Trump using only RICO. So she's treating Trump like he's a mob boss, and she's behaving in this way. Isn't that something? So she gets the benefit, she gets the kickback, taxpayer money is funneled to him, who funnels it to her, and they act like Trump's the gangster. He also went and met with the White House counsel, Nathan Wade, her boyfriend. He says he doesn't remember what they discussed. What do you think they discussed? He's a nothing. He's a nobody. Of course, they discussed Trump, and he won't admit it. So the judge said that one of them has to go, her or her boyfriend. They can't remain as a team. So ultimately, if she goes, which she did, then her whole team goes with her. So that's how it shook out. So she's disqualified. Her whole office is disqualified, but they are just going to pass the case over to a different office. So I regard the indictment against Trump as a violation of due process, and that's a tough standard to meet. But the court would not say that it was a violation of due process, and thus the prosecution goes on. So there's a couple of challenges here Trump could make. He can continue to appeal this to the Georgia Supreme Court. And as this whole case was a violation of due process, it could get thrown out. If he loses there, it could go to the Supreme Court. And Fani Willis might appeal herself because she might want to get back on the case, which could be better for Trump, because the situation could get better for Trump if she does appeal. She could be butthurt, as the expression goes, that she's getting thrown off. So this is a developing situation. It's a big win, but it actually could be better. So Trump wins, Trump's allies wins. If the case gets thrown out for presidential immunity, which is possible, though, then all of Trump's allies who are also part of the case, they're still liable potentially. So still a developing situation, but Willis disqualified. The case is going to be transferred as of now, but an appeal process could upend that and eventually could end the case. So, but the court punted, and they didn't even offer a reason on whether or not the indictment itself was unconstitutional. So that is TBD, to be determined. We'll see that down the road. All right, those are the big news stories that I wanted to share with you. Of course, there's other stuff, but I will withhold the temptation to do more news so that we can speak with Lara Trump. But before we do that, I got to tell you about amazing sponsor, Priority Gold, and they've flagged a key issue for me, and I love when people do this. So many smart, observant people out there. But Harris and Biden looking to lock in radical policies before Trump takes office on January 20th. They're not just winding down, they're cementing their control. Biden's already signed Executive Order 14067. The banks are actively testing a government-controlled digital dollar right now. This isn't about modernizing currency. It's about total control. They want to track every dollar you earn, save, and spend, every single one. And here's the kicker. Once the system is fully implemented, it'll be nearly impossible for Trump to undo it. The radical left and their global elite allies will have a permanent grip on your financial life long after they're out of power. Trump's called this a dangerous threat to freedom. J.D. Vance warns it could mean total government control of your finances. Folks, this is real. It's happening now. But you're not powerless. My friends at Priority Gold, they create a free wealth preservation guide to help you fight back. Lays out 3 critical steps for you to be able to shield your savings from this overreach. You text FREEDOM to 24999 right now. Get your guide. That's FREEDOM to 24999 or visit PriorityGold.com. Don't wait. Text FREEDOM to 24999 today and shield what's yours. One other thing I want to tell you guys about, January the 20th coming up. Washington, D.C. is going to be the place to be. I'm trying to get there. I got a social calendar coming together. I got to try to do it. That's where Donald Trump will be, getting inaugurated, the 47th president, and he wants to send you there to win a once-in-a-lifetime VIP experience to attend the inauguration in Washington, D.C., including airfare for you and a guest, a 3-night stay in our nation's capital, and tickets for the presidential inauguration. So cool. Much more, by the way, in this package as well. Don't miss the extraordinary opportunity to celebrate the greatness, the history, the excitement of a presidential inauguration. And it is exciting. I will tell you that. To enter, you got to see the link in the show notes of this episode. You go to SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump. That's Salem Podcast Network /Trump. So it's Salem Podcast Network /Trump. You do that. I don't know why you wouldn't try for this, guys. It's going to be so sweet if you get it. And I really hope you do. All right. Without any further delay, here's Lara Trump. All right. So, Lara, I know a lot of celebrities. I know a lot of famous people. And you always say you like to grab a beer with someone. You seem like someone that I would want to grab a beer with. Do I have this wrong? We've only spoken on the air. You seem like you'd be a fun hang. It's a Trump thing. Most Trumps are fun hangs, but I think so. Do you fit that mold?
Yeah, well, that's very kind of you. Thank you. You know, I'm going to say yes to this. I'm toot my own horn for a minute.
Yeah.
Look, Alex, I grew up probably like you did, like probably most Americans did. And so it's funny because coming into the Trump family, I assumed a certain way of things about a family with the last name Trump. I was probably totally wrong because nobody's a better hang, honestly, than my husband, Eric. One of the reasons I married him. My brother-in-law, Don, they're both like just kind of down to earth, very normal, grab a beer kind of guy type of people. But yeah, I like to think so. I like to have a nice time myself. And, you know, if you might have like a karaoke bar situation in your future, let me know. I would show up
I will.
there.
Absolutely. No, I know you sing and that's good. We got to take the culture back. We got to do it. We got to be bold in that regard. When did you meet Eric?
Oh my gosh, we met. So I moved to New York in 2007.
Wow.
I know, 700 years ago, to actually go to culinary school of all things. I'd graduated from college. Yeah, I graduated from college in 2005, and it was really tough to find a job. Honestly, the job market wasn't great. I was doing a lot of odd jobs. I moved back home to my hometown of Wilmington, North Carolina. And of all things, I got very interested in cooking and culinary. And it was really kind of my rationale for moving to New York. My parents were like, good luck with that. Good luck taking out a loan.
It is the best place to eat in the world. I mean,
yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
But they were like, we're not paying for culinary school. Are you nuts? So I moved to New York. I started in culinary school, and about 6 months after I moved there, I was actually out one night with some friends. My roommate had friends in town, and Eric and I met, and I did not know that a gentleman named Eric Trump even existed, Alex. And I just knew that he was much taller than I was, and I had heels on, and so that was going to work out well for me. Turns out it takes very little to catch my attention, at least in 2008 is when we officially met.
That's funny. Because I was thinking, I watched him just absolutely slaughter the entire CNN newsroom in a segment in 2016, and I'm pretty much a card-carrying heterosexual, but I still almost proposed to him there. So, but he was taken. It's like, I've actually never met Eric, by the way, which is kind of wild.
Wow.
Yeah. We should fix that one day. Hopefully,
Yeah, one day.
Let's talk about the RNC, where you came in as co-chair, and it seemed like everything changed. You get a lot of credit. I don't know exactly how much, not knowing all the inner workings. I know Michael Whatley worked really hard, and he's a great communicator also. But take me into your decision making, going and taking on that job. It's a huge job. You've got a young family. You got your hand in a lot of stuff. What made you want to do it, and then what did you do?
Well, I'll tell you one name. His name's Donald Trump. Yeah, that's basically why I ended up there. I got a call from my father-in-law. It was early in 2024, and I had no idea that this was going to enter any framework that I'd be involved in. I had the RNC co-chair job was not on my trajectory or life path or bingo card, whatever you want to say. And he called me and he kind of talked to me about it, and he said, we're looking for a good person there. And we've kind of gone through a whole list of names, and the only one that everybody feels is the perfect fit is you. And I was like, me? Wait a minute. And my initial inclination, Alex, was to say, like, no way, because I knew what a big deal this election was. I knew the gravity of things. I knew how much truly needed to change at the RNC. I was a senior advisor to the campaign from 2017 to 2020. And so I worked alongside the RNC and closely knew the people there and the apparatus that existed there. But I also knew that it wasn't working in a lot of respects, and that a lot of people didn't trust it, and a lot of people weren't donating to it, and there needed to be a whole restructuring of things. And so it seemed like a very big task to undertake. Yes. And so initially I kind of was like, I don't know if I want to do it. But eventually, after thinking about it and really thinking about this election and saying to myself, like, I never want to look my kids in the eye down the road and say, what if I had done this job and could have made a difference? And so ultimately I said yes. And once we got in there, I think Michael Whatley and I'm glad you brought him up, because I could not have asked for a better partner. He's the chairman of the RNC, and we both were elected at the exact same time. And we both got in there and had the exact same vision for what needed to happen. We needed to really kind of just take things apart at the RNC, stop doing so many things. I think the RNC was trying to be everything to everybody, saying yes all the time to everyone. And when you do that, you really can't focus on the major issues and the tasks that you need to. And so we said, all right, we're really going to pare it back. We're really going to make sure that we understand what we need to do, which is get out the vote, get out low propensity voters, get people out early, and ensure election integrity. Because if you don't have those components, you're not going to win this election. And so we really just focused heavily on those things. And obviously, the result speaks for itself, but we had a great team there, our election integrity team, a group of lawyers, just all great. And I'm so honored to have been able to be there.
I want to go through that formula again, because that sounds like the perfect formula. And one of the reasons why I'm able to pay the bills is because it feels like a lot of people on our side have good hearts and good values and even good minds, but they're not that clear. And that's one thing I try to do. That was incredibly clear. Give me that formula again with election integrity, low propensity voters, you 3 or 4 in a row. I want to hear that again.
Well, so first and foremost, election integrity. Look, coming out of 2020, it's kind of crazy to me, because anytime anybody, Alex, would even talk about election integrity, you were criticized immediately. Sure. You were a conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat, all that stuff. And if you can't address a problem and actually talk about a problem, you're never going to fix it. And so Michael Whatley and I were like, all right, we're going to go all in on election integrity. We're going to talk about it as much as humanly possible. We're going to go to local media markets and talk about it, open up these offices where we'll train people to be our volunteers, our poll watchers, our poll workers, our legal experts on the ground in every major state in America. And that's exactly what we did. So we talked about the problem. We said the way we fix it is by having eyes on the ground and boots on the ground every time a vote is cast and counted. And we asked for people to volunteer. We said, got 100,000 people is a lot. That's a big lift to ask to get 100,000 volunteers. We got 230,000 people who came out to volunteer. That's how hungry people were to see that our elections were free, fair, and transparent. And then the other side of it, aside from election integrity, is recruiting or getting out our low propensity voters. So that means people who have not traditionally voted in every single election. Maybe they didn't even vote until, back 16 years ago is the last time they voted. But we know every time they vote Republican. This is the beauty of data. And in some ways, AI, we were able to our data team was incredible. And they targeted these people and they made sure we understood who they were. But we knew we couldn't just turn them out on election day. We had to do something that was very antithetical to, I think, a lot of Republicans knee-jerk, which is get people out to vote early.
Yes.
And look, if you've got weeks on end of voting and we're all waiting until the day of, life happens. You have bad weather. I have kids. You have kids. Somebody gets sick.
Yes.
You have a school issue. You have a work issue. You get sick yourself. You can't wait until the last day. If we're putting all of our eggs in that basket, we're destined to lose almost. So we said, we've got to really change the way people understand early voting. And the way that we were able to do it is by explaining to people that if we know you voted, and we did know that you voted when you voted early, we take you off our list and we're not using our resources to try and then get you out to still vote. So it allows us to reach more people and get more voters out to vote for Republicans. So that was basically the whole thing in a nutshell, kind of broken down.
Yeah.
And it obviously it's something that we're going to have to keep up as a party. We can't just say, oh, we've done this one time, like everybody knows what to do. Foot on the gas for election integrity, foot on the gas for early voting. We're going to have to continue to do this. Hopefully we see some movement in our elections, maybe via Congress. I would like to see a couple of safeguards put in place. Mm-hmm. But until then, this is how we're going to have to play the game.
Was there any resistance to this? Because one thing that I found in, I guess, 20 years in being sort of in the activist side of Republican politics to some degree, that there's sometimes resistance to things that we are unhappy that they exist, even if we can use them to our advantage. And what I mean by this is the early voting. We would do better in elections if there was no early voting overall.
100%.
But it's there. And right. I felt like we spent a decade and a half of losing elections because we would prefer if there was no early voting aside from, military, things like that. But it was really important for us to embrace it. And so when we did that with your leadership, were people saying that's not the right approach?
Oh, there was a lot of pushback. I remember going and speaking at CPAC in February of last year, and this is before I was officially elected as co-chair. And I remember in my speech, I very distinctly wanted to put in there something about early voting. Mm-hmm. And when I was writing it, I said to myself, I know that people aren't going to like this. And sure enough, they're in front of the CPAC audience. I mean, that's as red meat as you're going to get. That's my crowd, right? Everybody's very excited about everything I'm saying. And then I get to early voting, and it's like dead silent in the room. And I expected that. And even within our inner circle, there were some people who were very resistant to it, not the least of which initially was Donald Trump himself. And I think we continued to talk to him over and over and over again about the importance of early voting. And basically, look, he's the leader, right? And we said, if you talk about it and you embrace it and you understand that it matters for us to win, then people will go out and vote early. But you have to buy into it as well. And it's not perfect. I would love for there not to be early voting, but you're right. We have to play the hand that we're dealt. It's not a perfect hand, but it's what we have. And so we had to make the best of it. And obviously, my father-in-law was very early to come out. And I think he posted on X and Truth Social that mail voting, early voting, and election day voting are all great ways to vote. Once we had that, we were off to the races.
I want to ask this, even though this was probably not directly in your purview, but I'm sure you gave it some consideration. A lot of this falls in the campaign and the Democrats. But were you kind of surprised at what a terrible campaign the Democrats ran? Because this is supposed to be their area of expertise, where they're supposed to be really good at the organizing and the campaigning and the messaging. And we're the ones who have great people who have no idea how to do any of those things. And they just really stunk. They just did such a bad job. They picked a bad candidate and they ran her very poorly. Were you was there a moment where a giddiness kicked in? Were you surprised? I was sort of surprised to see them keep making these horrible mistakes over and over again.
Yeah, and they had so much money, Alex.
Yeah,
that's
so
the crazy
much.
part.
So much.
when you're raising these exorbitant amounts of money and just dumping them into your campaign and your campaign still sucks, that's pretty bad. Yeah, I actually, one of the moments for me that, I mean, talk about a giddy moment, I think initially I was shocked and then I was sort of excited, was when Kamala Harris went to Raleigh, North Carolina and gave her first economic speech. If you recall that speech,
I do.
When she talked about price fixing, and instead of using the words price gouging, she said price gauging. And I to myself in that moment, I said, does this person actually understand what she's saying? Because it's clear that somebody just wrote something on a teleprompter and she's just reading it. And any person who knows actually what you're talking about would have been able to make that switch, but she didn't seem to. And so to me, I said, all right, well, later on, if she's questioned about this, she's not going to have a good answer. And indeed, she never had any good answers. And any person who is inclined at all to understand what she was trying to say would look at her and say, this person can never be president of the United States. So, and that was pretty early on. But look, you never know. You don't know what you don't know. And we're also, there's always things in the background. There's always concerns. But that moment for me, I was just kind of like, that's a tough one there. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I was watching her economic messaging that surrounded this speech and subsequent interviews, and I remember that this was where she was trying to blame the economy, you know, on evil grocery store owners. Yeah. And I always thought, like, okay, good luck on that.
1%, marking things off, like barely making scraping by. It's nuts.
Hey, lady, you've been the tie-breaking vote on $1 trillion spending packages multiple times. Like, I don't think it's the local grocery clerks.
Probably not the problem.
Really not good. And that's why, you know, we got to delight in it, but we got to cement these gains. And you're moving on to new stuff. What's the path forward to cement some of these gains as we look ahead?
Well, look, I think that Michael Whatley is going to remain at the RNC, which I think is great.
It's very important. Yes. I've actually never interviewed him either. He's on Slater's show on Breitbart News Daily a lot, so I've not had to got to spend a lot of time.
You should have him on. He's one of the greatest people I've ever met. I'm so honored to have worked with him. Just a solid human being overall.
I mean, running a political party is a big deal, so hopefully he likes the gig. But
he does, and he's good at it, and he understands. Look, there's no one who understands more than Michael exactly what needs to happen. And he knows, I think, that we have to keep our foot on the gas for all of this. So I think that's number one. But, you know, I mentioned that I would like to see, just personally, having had to go through this election as RNC co-chair and fight like we did for election integrity, there are some small changes that could be made on a nationwide basis. And I know the elections are determined by each state and the state legislatures, and that's the way we've always done it. But some of these states, Alex, are really taking advantage of you know, that process and putting these methods in place that lend itself to a lot of fraud, a lot of cheating, a lot of people not being able to trust the process. And so whether it's that we go to paper ballots, whether it's that we go to one day of voting and it's a federal holiday of some measure, whether it's that we need voter ID all across this country, there are some things like that I personally, having gone through this and having seen how hard it is to ensure election integrity, know that it would make the whole process a lot easier. And I understand why there are some people who don't want to see that happen. And that's exactly why it probably should. But that will be an issue for Congress to take up. I hope they do. I hope somebody introduces a bill to make sure that our elections are free, fair, and transparent, because it's the foundation to our entire country.
Well, I think when you start losing faith in that stuff, it really does hurt the national consciousness and our opinions of one another. That when neither side feels like the other side when they win is legitimate, it's not very good on a cultural level. You know, the left beat us to this. I've actually been doing a research project where I'm breaking this all down. I mean, they've been much worse historically, but, you know, I think a lot of our audience didn't think 2020 election was legitimate, and they have very good reason to feel that way, and that's not good. So we need to do a lot to restore that. So it's a big project. It's a long time project. I want to ask about some of your extracurricular stuff. So you're doing the singing. Everyone knows about that, but you launched a athletic brand, which I think is very cool, because I'm huge into the alternative economy. And I think that we need to start building our own stuff, making sure it's highest quality, made in America whenever humanly possible, and trying to do what we can to not give the bad guys our money, because that's how they fund their whole apparatus,
right,
is by the woke corporations. We buy their stuff because we kind of need it in some cases, and then they donate to the bad guys, and that's the cycle. So we've got to break that. So, but what did you do? You stepped in here.
Yeah, well, and listen, before I got the call to potentially become co-chair of the RNC, I had a whole slate of things that I was doing. I had a lot that I was personally working on, and one of them was this clothing brand, the Lara Trump collection. It's at laratrump.com. You can find my podcast there, The Right View. You can also find my clothing there. And, I had to put it all on hold, because whenever you have a critical election, you've got to ensure goes the right way. You need to put everything else on hold, which I did. So now I'm excited. I launched it in late November, and it is all made in the USA. And I'll tell you, Alex, that was a big challenge. When I first started looking into this, I said, look, this is who we are as a family. This is who we want to represent, made in the USA. And that's how I want to do things. And all of these people I met with consistently would show me the price points for things made in the USA and the exact same item made overseas in Vietnam and wherever it is. And it's amazing to see how much more expensive it is and how few companies actually manufacture products in the United States. But I'm proud to say I did it. I think the product speaks for itself. I think it's very high quality, very well done, made by American workers. We're keeping it right here at home. And I hope to see more people do this. And I think with Donald Trump in the White House, it will be a lot easier to do this. He's encouraging just the same thing to happen. So I'm really excited about it. We'll see what that front holds. The singing, yeah, some people would put singing in air quotes. I have a fun time. When in my wildest dreams did I think that anyone was going to let me record a song? So that's been really fun. I have some stuff that I need to release with some names that I think people will know that I also put on the back burner during the course of this campaign, but that'll be coming out soon. And I'm just kind of open to see what the future holds. I am very lucky to say that I have a lot of different avenues I could go down, and I'm just kind of letting God be my guide and show me where he wants me, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, I'm way in on the singing is great. As you know, at Breitbart, we're culture's upstream of politics people. So we want to see as many people in the arts as possible. And we don't know what that looks like now, because it could be, we can't sit around and wait for you to get cast in Wicked 3. Like if you can't do that, you got to start doing your own stuff. So I'm way in on that. But
I'm on the top of their list, Alex. I'm sure.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure. Absolutely. It's Missy, if you want to put up some B-roll of the crying of the Wicked stars crying in that interview, it's unbelievable stuff. I know you know that one, Laura. But I love the athleisure stuff too, because it's so popular. My wife is very fashionable. Fashion's her main hobby. And I'll tell you, it's still all athleisure, even the fashionable people. I mean, that's what it is. The cool workout gear is so in, and I'm just glad you're doing it. All the stuff looks amazing. You can go to shop.laratrump.com to get all that stuff. And everything looks great. I mean, everything looks great. So you're a fitness junkie. I mean, you're in terrific shape. I mean, what's the routine? Because I'm big in the audience knows I've been writing for the Maha Caucus. We're going to make America handsome again. We're going to make America gorgeous again. Well, that's what we're doing. I think that I love Robert Kennedy. I know he's surrounded by people who think the food system is messed up, and it is. And we got to look at some of the health practices over time. Public health is a disgrace, but we're mostly too fat. That's the issue. We're not working out enough. We're eating too much, and that's where it starts with me. Obviously, you're working out, not eating too much. I mean, what's your plan? What's your sort of day-to-day fitness regimen?
Well, it always changes, and I think that's important, because when you do the same thing over and over again, you're really not going to get the same results. Like if your body is not sore after you've worked out, maybe you took it a little too easy, and you don't have to do it every day. But look, I love to do triathlons. I love to challenge myself and do things that scare me. And nothing's more terrifying than open water swimming for me. So I love to train for triathlons, which means swimming, biking, and running when I can. I love CrossFit because that is also a challenge. There's like some gymnastic element to it that I like. And I'll throw in a little Pilates every now and again. But look, as long as I can break a sweat, as long as I get just a little bit of time for me, it really is. It's obviously it's physical, but it's also mental for me, because oftentimes that is the only portion of my day where everybody leaves me alone, where I'm not tied to a phone, a computer, my kids, my husband, my dogs, whatever it is. Everyone always needs something from you, but I give myself at least a little bit of time every day to do something that is for me. And it's really beneficial physically and mentally for me. Just ask my husband, if I haven't gotten a workout in a couple of days, probably not going to be great to be around, just saying.
Yeah, I have to say that sometimes, especially if you're a person who's married, as I am, and my wife and I like each other, it's not just about like, can I chisel my jaw a little bit more? Like that's not necessarily enough motivation. It's a lot of it's got to be the mood and the health factors. And not just that, maybe I can look a little bit better. Like it's that's not going to do it enough. You got to look at it as it's the people around you will like you more if you're exercising. It's just true. It's just, you just feel better all day.
And the feeling better, I think, is a big part of it too.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so jazzed about RFK Jr. being at HHS. I think it's going to be incredible. And I think people are going to start to see when he uncovers and probably makes public some of the things that we've been allowed to have in our food system, the misguidance that we've been given. I think it's going to be really amazing. You know, the transformation of our country, whether you're talking about Doge, whether we're talking about via Make America Healthy Again, Donald Trump's golden age of America, all of these things over the next 4 years, Alex, I am so excited about. I know a lot of people are, but when you feel it, that's the big part of it. And the older we all get, you know, you feel more. So you want to stay healthy, you want to feel good even longer. So it's all part of it for me.
Yeah, we got to look under the hood. I've been saying for as long as they've given me a microphone that the original U.S. government hoax was the food pyramid.
Totally.
It was the first one where made me think, if the government's willing to do this, they're willing to lie to me about a lot of stuff.
Wasn't the cereal companies or something that paid for that?
Yes, it's the grain companies. It was big agriculture, and not the great farmer. We love our farmers. We only have the best farmers. It's lobbyists. It's people who are just trying to sell a few extra units, and they're willing to make us all morbidly obese in the process, which was just, and the government went along with it. They went right along with it, and it just makes you question everything. You start from that premise. You said something there that I really think is important, because I feel like this culture where we're supposed to like walk 10,000 steps. I don't know. I fine, whatever. But I like that you said you would like to work out hard. You like to actually go for it. Yeah. I think there's just, we're way too cash. Most people are not going to get 10,000 steps. I work in my home office. It's like, I try to walk to pick up my kids from school. I'm not getting 10,000, but when I hit the bike or when I hit the weights, like I can go hard, I can get after it. And I think we got to have a reset on this. We're going to work out lightly all day long, because no one's doing that. We've been talking about 10,000 steps for 10 years now. We've never been fatter. We need to start talking about work out a little harder when you get to the gym.
Well, we also need to be accepting of hard work in general. Things are not meant to be easy.
Yes.
And if it's too easy, if it's too easily attained, then we don't really care about it. It's not worth it. You know, like the things that I've personally had to work hardest for in my life are the things that I appreciate the most. And I think that, you know, we've become a culture where everything is easy. You know, it's so easy to pick up your phone and order groceries or whatever it is. Sometimes you got to put in the hard work. And even if you have 20 minutes, I'll tell you what, I could get a heck of a workout.
Yeah.
Give me 20 minutes in a closet, Alex. I don't even need a weight, but you have to work hard. You got to go hard at what you're doing. And I'll tell you, it actually translates into all areas of your life. If you're able to go and complete a triathlon, for example, then that mentally does something to you. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. I don't know. Then maybe I could achieve this other thing at work, whatever it is, you know?
I asked a similar question to Jocko Willink one time, who's the big motivational guru.
Yeah.
I think he was a Navy SEAL. And he said he works out every day. Sometimes his workout is just, let's see how fast I can row 2,000 meters. Which for a guy like that, it'll be 6-7 minutes, maybe less for him. And it's like, but still, that's it. If that's all he's got, if he's traveling all day, then he's going to bust his behind for the 6 minutes. Like, if that's what he's got, that's what he's got. So, I mean, I really love doing the non-political stuff with you, but there's a lot of discussion of you becoming the next senator from Florida. Is that a job you would like to have?
Well, you know, I wouldn't have ever considered being RNC co-chair about a year ago, but I did that. And honestly, I really did enjoy that job. And having seen that side of politics, I was actually elected into that position and serving in a certain capacity, I really did find that I enjoyed it. Obviously, this will be a decision that Governor Ron DeSantis has to make, but I've certainly thought extensively about it, and I think it could be really exciting. And it's something that I would definitely consider if he came to me and said, "I'd like to appoint you." Absolutely, I think it would be incredible. And I've seen the good and the bad side of politics. The bad side we all know about. We know them attacking our family. We know what it is that they'll do just in the name of politics in general. But I've also been able to travel the country on behalf of my father-in-law and hear how one person can truly have such a positive impact on so many. If I could play a small role like that, it would truly be an honor. So I'm just honored, Alex, to even be considered among the names of all these other great people who could possibly fit this position.
Well, on your show, The Right Few, I already endorsed you, so I'm not a Floridian, so I don't know how much pull I have, but you've got my endorsement. Let's say you get in day one. What would be the issues you'd want to tackle first?
Well, I think it's a lot of the stuff that we just talked about. I think, look, there was a definite, loud and clear mandate delivered by the American people on November 5th. And I think any senator who's a Republican right now, quite frankly, any of the senators in the United States Senate need to sit up and listen to the American people. They want their country back. They want strong borders. They want things that are going to make this economy better. They want to get out of these endless wars that we have around the world. We had the first president in 82 years in Donald Trump not to get us into a new war. We need to get back to a place like that, rebuild our military, peace through strength. All those sorts of things I think are going to be important. And then I'll tell you, as a mom, I want to know that I'm leaving a country to my kids that does work well for them, that the food supply, the things that I'm feeding them are actually healthful and are actually going to benefit them and are not poisoning them, that we understand more about how to have a long and healthy life in the United States. So, I think that there are a lot of people out there who would like a little more insight into all those things and to see movement in all those spaces. And certainly if I ever became a senator, those are things that I'd want to champion as well.
And you add to the trend, we're trying to keep it low body fat now when we're going to Washington. I can't believe it, these cabinet picks that Trump's picking, just all these people.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable.
Good looking, slender folks.
Top 1% in intellectual achievement, top 1% in physical achievement. That's what he's going
so
for.
Funny.
Well, Lara, I would like to do a longer conversation with you down the road, but you have been very generous to this point. I know you're a busy person. You're very generous to Breitbart as always. I love being on The Right View, which I was on earlier this week when you're hearing this. Yeah. So everyone should check that out. Lara's show, which is always super fun. You and your producer, Darren, you guys do an amazing job there. And there'll be, I'll insert other plugs for you throughout the rest of the show. But thanks. Best of luck to Ron DeSantis making the right choice in Florida. And we'll talk to you soon.
You're the best. Thank you, Alex. Always appreciate you.
My pleasure. That's today's show. Thanks as always to our producer, Misty, and everyone at Salem, Breitbart News, the Fight Club, our premium membership. I've got a fascinating breakdown of what's going on in Washington with Matt Boyle today on my show, Breitbart Confidential, that I do over there. Emailing me at aloha@alexmarlow.com. I will be answering feedback and reading comments and answering questions tomorrow's show. So don't forget to do that. Leaving those great reviews wherever you get your podcast, leaving comments, all that helps the show grow and thrive. And big things are to come for this country and on the Alex Marlow Show. That's it for today. I'll talk to you tomorrow.